Hi, I'm Looney, and I've been playing Diablo Immortal for a little over a year, and in that time, I've learned quite a bit about the game, explored its hardest content, competed for basically every leaderboard of which it is possible to compete for, because some of them are purely pay to win, which is mostly like the PvP tournaments, but still, I did compete in those. And this includes speedrunning different aspects of the game, namely speedrunning dungeons, with or without events. I'll be speedrunning even. So after all this time playing, I kind of made a realization. It does not really matter how much you spend in the game. As long as you know what you're doing, you can outcompete many people who have spent hundreds or even up to $1,000, depending on how long you've been playing. So with this realization, I decided, why don't I make a new account and make my way all the way up to the top ranks of PvP. And I'm going to be doing this without spending a single penny on this account. And remember, this is one of the most infamous games for microtransactions. So I'm not even going to get the battle pass, I'm not even going to buy a skin. So this is my complete journey on said fresh account to the highest rank, that being Legend, all within 60 days. So let's get into how this happened. Real quick, just a quick caveat about whales, since that's what everybody loves to complain about, especially in PvP, but also just in general. So it's a good thing that there are whales in the game. You need them, in a sense, to carry some content for you, especially on a newer account. This is just part of the game. You get carried, and if you can, you carry those who you can carry. It's an intrinsic part of the game, and when it came to PvP, I did have some matches where, you know, the enemy will have a big whale, and then they'll just steamroll us, but it wasn't really that common. And even some of those games, my team will also have a whale, and then we'll end up winning. So now, on to the account. And the most important part is the name. So I went with... If you know, you know. Basically, I'm channeling my inner Tyler 1 and steamrolling my way to the top off of pure dedication and willpower.
I am the goddamn greatest of all time. So, again, hey. I mean, I deserve this, to be honest.
I decided I'd be completing this challenge on Wizard. The main reason for that is because so many of the 1 and 2 star gems are favorable for skill damage classes, and of course Wizard is basically pure skill damage depending on your build. So I can utilize these cheap gems very well and be dealing quite a bit of damage for such a new account, which you'll see as we progress through the account stages. And speaking of stages, these are the stages that I have to get through. Each will be timestamped for you to jump around if you would like to do so. So in order, we need to get the hell out of hell. Then we need to farm absolutely everything. Then we need to get as many small bonuses as possible. And then, stage 4, we move into bot matches. It's kind of not really PvP, you know, it's PvB, but we have to do it, unfortunately. Then, stage 5 is the real PvP content. And don't worry, there will be a montage at the end of this, so stay tuned. So, the first thing I need to do, as the name mentions, is get the hell out of hell. And the main thing you need to do this is really just XP. But I also need to make sure, you know, I'm getting some type of gear upgrades along the way. This is much easier said than done, but it's still not too much of a hassle at first. Getting all the way to Inferno 1 was very easy, but getting up to Inferno 7 and then 8 is where the real grind begins. So I start where every account does, doing quests. Now you might realize that I have a returners boost, and that's because I had the idea for this account a while ago, so I made the account, then I didn't have time to start it, so I let it sit. So by the time I actually started playing, I just so happened to get the returners boost. I didn't plan for it, but it did kind of help me out. But by no means is it broken. Is having the returners boost broken? It kind of speeds up initially the grinding, but the Seeker's Path is what's really broken. However, everybody gets the Seeker's Path, so it's not broken in that sense. So my main goal is to reach level 60 so that I can unlock the Paragon system. But the most important thing about unlocking the Paragon system is that now you get some crazy XP boosts. It starts at 1500% increase, or a 15 times XP, and then works its way down to 8 times. You stay at 8 times for a while, and then you're caught up eventually. I also looked out as Fractured Plane had just come out, so you're about to see me get some insane levels after just 15 minutes of gaming. So within a couple hours, I'm at level 60, I jump straight into Fractured Plane. I jumped from Paragon level 2 to Paragon level 38 after one run. So after getting this big bump, I decided to knock out a few more early quests, namely unlocking the Heliquary and all of this, especially since these quests become exponentially easier once you get a few levels, once you get a few upgrades, because you get some CR and that gives you just flat damage increases. I basically repeated this cycle a few more times, completing more and more quests in between runs, and then solo carrying myself through as many raids as I could. I was trying to do as many of these raids solo as possible, and I got pretty damn far. As well, I started running myself through some early dungeons for green items, and I get XP from the dungeons, but also I get a ton of gear upgrades, some combat rating increases with the drops in the dungeons, and then once I got bored of the Fractured Plane, and then once I've kind of exhausted the novelty of it, in a sense, I started completing challenge rifts. Because now that I have some good combat rating, I can skip quite a bit of challenge rifts. And then this will initially just boost you to like level 500 immediately in a couple days. So I was incredibly over leveled for a very long time. So in the early Paragon levels, all you really need to worry about stat wise with your gear is your combat rating. Nothing else really matters because you're just going to keep getting better and better gear. So don't worry about getting fortitude, willpower, whatever. Just pick up your highest CR pieces and wear those until you catch up to everybody else. And then this catching up with everybody else is what matters the most. So I'm equipping everything that I can that's marginally better, farming more, repeating. I was doing this from anywhere from 5 to 8 hours a day. So I was progressing very, very quickly. And by the third day, I was already well within Inferno. Now, I'm incredibly far from Inferno 7 or 8 at this point, but the best part of just getting to Inferno 1 is now you're in the same instances with everybody else. So now you can start doing group content with anyone in the game. I can stay in my low Inferno level, get my gear at Inferno 1 or 2 or whatever, while I'm playing with other people who are in, Inferno 7 or 8, and they're getting their own gear. This is especially nice with dungeons, because normal dungeons are pretty slow, the drop rates aren't that great, especially when you're trying to do them solo on a fresh account. So now I can queue up for random dungeons, and namely, random challenge dungeons, and then I can be with people who are stronger than me, carrying me. So if you think about it, I'm profiting from the money that other people have spent, which sounds pretty good to me. And of course, challenge dungeons have better drop rates and everything. So this is how I got the hell out of hell, and that's stage 1 completed. So now we move on to stage 2 of the account, where we farm absolutely everything. And this is the longest and hardest stage of this challenge. So let me just list out the bare minimum things that I need to farm before I can even consider touching PvP. I'm going to go through each of these like one at a time, explain to you the timeline and the steps taken to reach each goal, as pretty much every farming activity I'm doing at the same time, or like one after the other on the same day. So I'll just explain to you how I went about reaching these goals. That'll help you work through sort of the timeline of the progression of the account, so that you don't have to just watch me farm the same thing for a month straight. But if you do, want to see that, I have 99% of the progress on this account is live streamed here on my channel. All of the videos are there if you are interested. So we need 80,000 or more platinum, 20 million or more gold. We need to get our CR as high as possible, and then we need to maximize our legendary and normal gems. So now this list looks kind of small, but if I get no luck, if I have average luck, no extra drops, this is going to take at least 2 months of grinding on the account. So let's get into where I'm getting all this platinum, what I need it for. So as I mentioned, I need about 80,000 plat. And the only ways I'm going to be getting platinum in any meaningful way is from selling my Terror Essence every week and then selling some of my normal gems, not all of them. So that's exactly what I did. I'm making this account knowing that I'm going to be very weak defensively, and I would need a lot of gems to get my defenses up anywhere reasonable. And that takes a lot of time, and I'm trying to do this as fast as possible. So I full sent my account as a glass cannon, kind of more like a glass fly swatter if you really think about it. I'm not doing that really crazy, and I really won't be for a while. So this means I sold all of my aquamarines and all of my topaz, since these gems are not going to help me do more damage directly. And then this gave me an extra few thousand plat each week. I also sold both of my red gems, but those sell for pennies, and I don't know how, but I actually got quite a few of my rubies to sell, which gave me a few thousand extra plat over the course of the account. However, Terror Essence can net you over 5,000 plat per week on their own, but you can't just jump straight into Terror Rifts. The first one that I tried to do was on day 2 of the account, and honestly I did pretty well, and I was just trying to see, how well it would go, since it was on a Sunday, the weekly reset was about to happen. And then surprisingly, I almost completed the whole rift. Of course, I'm doing it in Hell too, so it's as easy as possible, even though I've unlocked Inferno, because I'm just here for the Terror Essence. I do not ever care about getting the legendary upgrades from the Terror Rifts. I'm just here for the Terror Essence. So of course, this is something I made sure to do every single week, no matter what, in order to get my platinum quickly. I started off initially doing them just 10 in a day, knock it out Monday or Tuesday. But over the course of the account, I started to do them a couple of days so that I could use the Terror Rifts as a way to get my daily gems, because for some reason, it's almost impossible to get 12 gems from challenge dungeons unless you're doing like 2-3 hours or more. And then on top of all of this, I have been insanely lucky when it comes to rune drops with this account. So runes are another potential way to make plat, but you can't really plan around it. You basically just need to find legendary runes to make any reasonable plat, or you get one of the last two yellow/gold runes, namely the FA rune. So it's one of the few non-legendary runes that you can actually fetch a good price for, because it is used to make a legendary rune. So you can usually get anywhere from 7 to 10k plat from an FA rune, depending on your server's market. And would you believe me if I told you that I was able to get 2 of these sellable FA runes within weeks of this account's creation? So that was like an extra 14k plat from nowhere, which sped up the progress on my account greatly and helped me speedrun getting all of my Dawning Echoes. Oh yeah, that's what I need the 80k plat in total for. Awakening your gear should be everyone's #1 priority on a newer account, as the bonuses you get are insanely good. Without the FA runes, I was able to get my first Dawning Echo within 3 days, which sounds really fast, but essentially everyone should be able to get 1 per week. And like I said, I just did everything on Monday, so I capped out basically everything as fast as I could. So it's not like I was getting more than 1 per week, except when I did get lucky with some of these drops. So without getting all this extra luck, like I said earlier, it's going to take like 7 to 8 weeks. And that's what I was thinking at this point. But getting lucky with runes really sped this up. And I even got incredibly lucky, insanely lucky, towards the end of this challenge. And I got a QOT rune to drop. That's right. This is a legendary rune. I don't know how I got it. I got it from an Elder Rift at that too, which I've never in my life gotten anything more than, I think, a blue rune from an Elder Rift on any account. And I have, 25 accounts. So I made off with a nice and easy almost 50,000 plat after taxes with this rune. But by the time that I had gotten this, I already had earned about 70k plat on the account, so it didn't really speed up that much of the process of getting awakened gear. But it tied into some of the other progression, which I'll mention in some of the other sections of this video. So it sped up some other things, and it gave me boosts in other ways. But that covers the 80,000 platinum gold. Like I said, I'm selling my Terror Essences. I'm selling my Aquamarine, my Topaz, and my red gems as I get them. And then the runes were just a plus. These sped me up by a couple weeks, but it wasn't too crazy. So now, on to the next hardest goal. 20 million gold. So if you didn't know this already, it's going to cost you just about 31 million gold to get all of your gear to the max level. And that's not even mentioning the scrap and the dust required. However, with the addition of the Seeker's Path, there was not a single moment in this account's creation where I was low on scrap or dust. Not once. I was sitting above 300,000 scrap for weeks with the Seeker's Path. All the way up until the end of the account, I still have over 100,000 scraps, even though I'm upgrading my gear every single day. So the bottleneck is gold. And just to give you some perspective, if you went and did some of the most popular, most efficient farming methods on a really strong account, on your main account, you're not really ever going to break 300,000 gold per hour. So this technically means that getting 31 million gold is going to take you over 100 hours of gameplay, of farming. And ain't nobody got time for that. Luckily, the Vault will give you about 800,000 gold per week, which helps tremendously. And there are many events that'll give you extra gold while you're already earning them naturally in the game, doing activities, doing events. And did I mention that the Seeker's Path also gives you gold? So yeah, like I mentioned earlier, Seeker's Path is absolutely broken. Before the addition of this, it would take you months and months to save up the amount of gold and scrap that I had within a week. So this is a very, very good addition to the game. But the keen-eyed of you might be wondering why my goal is 20 million gold if I keep saying that it costs 30 million to max out your gear. Well, I don't plan on maxing everything out. My goal is really only to get my gear to level 26 and call it a day there. I will be missing out on a little bit of CR, but the time investment to get from 26 to 30 is not really worth it to postpone my PvP, because getting to level 26 unlocks all the Reforged bonuses, and that's really all I care about. So very slowly over the course of about 4 weeks, I spent my days spamming dungeons, loop farming, running the Verge, running Erebon, completing temporary game modes like Trial of the Hordes, since those give you tons of gold, among other things. And after all the farming and Seeker's Path rewards, I was able to reach this faster than I ever thought possible. Some of this gold is also for upgrading my set items, not just the legendary gear. And then the set items is purely for CR, and it's much, much, much cheaper than upgrading your legendary gear. So I got all of my greens to level 21 and 22 by the end, and that basically sums up the need for 20 million gold and how I got about getting it. Again, I'm farming this alongside everything else, so by the time I've reached this goal and the previous goal of 80,000 plat, I've already slowly been working on the next few stages. And getting to level 26 legendary gear is what even enables some of these next steps. So the way progression works is based on your Paragon level and your combat rating. It's insanely easy to get your Paragon level up compared to getting your combat rating caught up with where your level should be. So I spent weeks being over-leveled for my difficulty. But that's sort of intended, and that means you're gonna have to go out of your way to get your CR up if you're trying to do this as fast as possible. And this mainly just looks like running dungeons over and over until you get green items that'll boost your CR to the next level, along with leveling up your gear and all these other things. So at first this only took a couple dungeons per difficulty, as the CR jump between difficulties wasn't too bad and I'm getting actually good upgrades in general. But as you get closer to Inferno 7, you have to do a lot of dungeons to catch your CR up. You need to make sure you get a couple triple stat items and everything. It's no longer such an easy grind. Let me take you through the progression of dungeons on this account. Of course, I started at normal difficulty. These dungeons were very easy. They just took a while because I'm not even doing 5,000 damage per second in the dungeon. And I'm running these solo or sometimes with the Spectral allies, not that they do that much. And I tried to do as much as I could on this account solo, which honestly ended up being a lot more than I thought. On day 2, I was able to do Hell 3 dungeons solo with no issues, which is a stark comparison to just one day prior. But as I made it into the Inferno difficulties, I stopped even trying to do solo dungeons and started running 4-man random challenge dungeons, since this is the best way to get set items. And this is where I really first started getting carried by whales, and even non-whales who have just been playing the game for more than 4 days and do quite a bit more damage than I do. So this was going very, very smoothly until I made it around Inferno 6. And this is where I started to employ some tactics that many of you have maybe never seen or even considered. So around this level is where you need to not only get some set item upgrades, some legendary gear upgrades to reach the next level, but you also need to be upgrading and doing some other things to get your CR up. Because I'm still very, very early on in the count by the time I reach Inferno 6, so I have not earned that much gold. It has not been that many weeks, so I haven't been able to do that many vaults and everything. So in order to catch up my CR, I go to the #1 way that I can do to get CR, and that's with activity points. So activity points level up your ancestral tableau. And when you're on a fresh account, you get a boost to the number of activity points that you earn. So if you earn 40 activity points from an activity, and you look at your ancestral tableau and it says you have 250% rewards, that means that 40 points has now turned in to 100 points. So the #1 best way to get activity points is to do your weekly raids, do your weekly Sirangar, and then spam as many dungeons as possible until you have your battle pass capped out. And I made sure to do this every week because at the beginning, like I was mentioning, your activity points are boosted. So just from a few dungeons, you can get anywhere from 5 to 20 CR, depending on how new the account is. But then after you cap the battle pass, you can no longer earn these activity points from dungeons. So I had to resort to another tactic, purging the depths. So nowadays, this isn't too popular of an activity, mainly due to the insane RNG involved with gathering remnants. But I'm not here for remnants, I'm here for CR. Each purge run is going to give you 40 activity points. Since my account is new, I get increased activity points from the catch-up system. So at first, this was 700% an increase, and then it would slowly go down as you leveled up your ancestral tableau. So it only took a few minutes just to gain 5 CR at first. It started off with every run, every couple runs, and so on. So I probably gained over 300 or more CR just from purging the depths specifically, which doesn't sound like much, but when you add that in with all the other marginal gear upgrades and leveling up your equipment, it all adds up to get you to the next difficulty. If I didn't do this, then I would be stuck behind at least a couple weeks worth of dungeons, and that's capping out the battle pass with dungeons, which takes quite a bit of time. So I'd much rather just spend a couple hours grinding the depths so I can complete my goal a couple weeks earlier than anticipated. So now that covers almost everything I was doing to get my CR up. But there is one last thing I did to aid in this goal. So I had been saving up every single legendary item choice chest since the account's creation. And by the time I had reached this point of doing PvP, I had over 20 of these saved up. I then used each of these on my gear that was under CR, and after only a few choices, I almost had all of my gear at the max CR that it could be. And on top of these chests, I saved 100% of my crafting materials to craft legendary gear with the eternal affixes that I need for PvP. So this was another incredible source of high CR gear, and some of the pieces were even higher CR than the choice chests. You do also get some CR from your Heliquary remains, the demonic remains from raids, but this kind of happens in the background. It's not something you really need to grind for. So with all of these things, I have finally solved the issue of not having enough CR. And by the time I'm doing PvP, I had the CR for basically every piece of content in the game except for the last boss of Inferno 8, which you kind of have to be a whale to have the CR for that initially, until they lower it. So now, all I need to do is farm gems, and that is the final stage in the farming arc. You can't necessarily just go out and farm gems, whether that be legendary or normal. You have to deal with the weekly and daily caps on your normal gems, as well as you need crests to get legendary gems, or even the fragments to craft legendary gems. But still, every day I would try to cap my 12 normal gems, whether that be through terror rifts or dungeons usually. As well, I try to do at least a few Elder Rifts every day with or without crests, just to save up some of the fading embers, so that I could craft more crests as I progress through the account. So by the time I've reached the point where I'm doing PvP, I have just about 2500 armor pin and 2500 potency, which is not that great, but it'll do. However, if you remember from earlier, I did end up getting a super lucky QOT legendary rune that gave me an extra 50,000 platinum injection. And since I've already purchased all of my Dawning Echoes, I spent the vast majority of that extra plat on my secondary stats, getting my armor pin to almost 3k, but not quite. The best I could do was legitimately 2,999. I know, it's sad. And my potency was about 2,800. It's not much of a difference, but those few extra 100 stats add up greatly. I also spend a very small amount of the plat on some gem power to get my legendary gems to rank 4 for the awakening slots, but without this extra rune, I probably would have had 7 out of 8 slots awakened, since I wouldn't have had all of my gems to rank 4. So this saved me about a week. So here are the gems that I ended up going with. I'm only using 1 and 2 star gems, so it's very easy, very cheap to rank them up. Like I was saying earlier, Wizard can take advantage of more of the 1 stars than many other classes, namely the Entropic Well and Surging Sea gems. And then in PvP, I also made sure to use a Misery Elixir, since my potency is very low, and so this will help my debuffs actually last for a reasonable amount of time, and kind of bridge the gap between me and a lot of these other players. And this is, of course, along with the Feasting Baron set effect. And as you can see, I'm using Grim Rhythm instead of Fervent Fang. And the reason for this, I was contemplating both options, and I thought maybe Grim Rhythm would be better on its own with the gems that I'm using. I'm not really confident that this was the correct assumption, but in the end, both gems are good on Wizard, so it's not that big of a deal if you pick one or the other. I would maybe say go with Fervent Fang, though. As well, until I got some beneficial effect duration increases on my gear and reforges, I used a rank 4 Blessed Pebble for that extra beneficial effect duration. But I promptly took it off as soon as I had 100% uptime on my skills, and replaced it with something that's gonna, give me some more damage instead. I also want to mention that in the very short time that I played this account, I witnessed 2 different Mirror Jewel events. So if you were to do the same thing as me, but not see these Mirror Jewel events, I've essentially skipped ahead maybe a month of progress just from these events, or more. The first one I didn't get any 5-star dupes, but still I did get quite a bit of extra gem power. And then the second one, I was actually able to score an Echoing Shade, and then of course a dupe of that Echoing Shade. So that was an insane amount of gem power for my account. As well, the first ever 10 crest that I ran on this account, I ended up getting a Storm Vault. So I've had quite a bit of extra gem power from the get-go, and in the end, I only had 720 resonance by the time I was doing PvP. So if you think you need a lot of resonance to do PvP, I'm evidence that you simply don't. And if you're wondering how I was getting all of these crests, the first 10 were for free. There's the Hearthstone event was around, so we got 10 crests for free. I even took these 10 crests and ran a mirrored event on 20 accounts. I have a video on that if you're interested. And then I would get the rest of them from the weekly crest trader. I would cap out my fading embers every single week, so I'm getting basically 1 purple crest every week on top of that for free, and then collecting the rest of them from events and other sources. That covers stage 2, and that covers all of the gems. So now we're on to stage 3, getting as many small bonuses as possible. And these things are the Sanctum, my Reforged bonuses, Familiars, Cursed Properties, and some extra runes. Sanctum, of course, as you know, it's just a daily thing. Most days I would just run to the free chest on my own instead of sending my pets, because I would do it while I'm waiting for something else to happen. And then I would open the first 2 rooms whenever I had enough keys. On my main account, I usually wait until I have all 377 keys to open everything, but after some calculations, you basically get the same amount of these gemstones per key, no matter what chest you open. Even the final bonus chest in the end is not actually a bonus, it just evens it out, so it's all the same. So if you're wondering what you should do, you should at least wait until you can open the 2 rooms before you open the chests. And that's because after the first room, every chest has a chance to give you like a bonus, a lottery of extra gemstones. And that's going to run you about 100 keys, I think 105 exactly. So you can either wait until you save up everything, or you can just open up the first 2 rooms. In my opinion, those are the best 2 ways to go about it. The only Sanctum gem or gemstone, wherever you want to call them, that I wasn't able to get was from the Sandstone Golem in the library, but I was able to get the Hydra Stone, so it's not too bad. And the Golem Stone is just for resistance anyway, so not a big deal. I don't really care that I don't have it. And by the time I was ready for PvP, I barely had some of these stones over level 10, so these are going to give me some added benefits, but unless you've been playing for a while, your Sanctum is always going to be pretty low level. And then with the Reforged bonuses, I just saved every Reforged stone possible from the Health Trader every week, and I did not use any of them until I had all my legendary gear at level 26. Because as I mentioned at first, level 26 is when you unlock every Reforged slot. And by then, you've rolled the dice already, and you've gotten a free Reforged bonus, which sometimes can be a very good one. So by the time I'm hitting PvP, I have about 30 or 40 Reforged stones just from the weekly Health Trader. And what I'm looking for the most part, is beneficial effect duration increase, damage done to players, damage taken from players, skill damage increases, and crit hit damage increase. Of course, these are ideal, but I did not get all of these on my pieces. I have almost all favorable bonuses, but I wasn't super lucky with my Reforged bonuses, and this is what I ended up with. I did get a good amount of damage done to players increased and damage taken from players decreased, and that one is the best one since it's one of the few stats that is not reduced in the Cycle of Strife. So you're going to get the full bonus from that. The next thing is Familiars. This is pure RNG. There's really not much you can really do with the very few pets that you get on your account, especially when it's so young. And with the changes made where you can only sell aberrant pets and all this, the only thing you can really do is just summon every contract you get, convert whatever you have, and then just hope you get something good. I did end up getting a Myron with Lingering Wounds. It's not the best pet, not the highest quality of the skill, but still much better than anything else. Because Lingering Wounds is one of the best damage buffs anyone can have in the game. So not much with the Familiars here. Just convert, hope you get Lingering Wounds, or any of the other traits like extra max HP or crit damage or whatever. And of course it costs money to unlock these familiar slots. I don't have familiars to put in them, so I'm not going to spend the money on that. And now when it comes to cursed properties, these could give you a boost, but they also could never proc where it would really matter. However, you get so many of these stones to reroll your cursed properties that it is basically just free. All it just takes is time to click the button. So I did go through my cursed properties. I just tried to have bonuses that will deal damage over time when I attack enemies, because those are really the only ones that are going to help me with my build. And then finally, with some of the extra plat that I had from farming, I purchased a singular TYR rune. If you didn't know already, the reason I want this rune is because it gives you beneficial effect duration increase. Now I was going to purchase 2 of these, honestly, but I got pretty lucky, and at some point I did get 1 TYR rune myself pretty early on. So this is one of the few runes that I think is 100% worth buying, because nowadays it's super cheap. On my server, about 5,000 plat or less. So with my very few last 1,000 plat, I made sure to purchase 1 more TYR so that I have 2 of them to maximize my beneficial effect duration, as that is such an important stat to have. And now finally, with all of these things on the account, we are ready for some PvP. But the game has some other plans for us, as it seems. So if you happen to start Battlegrounds well after the start of the Battleground season, you can almost guarantee that you will only see bot matches until you reach about silver, or definitely until you reach gold. And then once you're in gold, you should only ever see people. So as much as I want to fight real people from the get-go, I have to slog through so many bot matches just to essentially catch up with everyone else in gold before I can face them in PvP. If you start doing PvP at the beginning of the season, you will not run into this. You'll see players from the beginning. You might still run into some bot matches here and there. A lot of times there's like a pity system where if you lose, your next match will be a bot match. It sometimes works like that. And then just because I'm fighting bots doesn't mean I had a 100% win rate on them. That's right. I was losing to bots. And it didn't just happen once or twice. It got pretty iffy down the line. So all throughout bronze and at the beginning of silver, my bot matches were all 30 plus kills and we'd stomp them out, no sweat. Then out of nowhere, the enemy team just started getting Avenger threat level bots on their teams. And it got so bad that like I would have over 20 kills. Another bot on my team would also have over 20 kills, and we would still lose the match. It'd be like 60 kills to 80 kills, and you know, we're attacking. Their kills don't matter. They're just steamrolling us basically. So this kind of thing doesn't happen when you've got humans. So I have no idea why it happens with bots. Like I've lost worse to bots than I've lost to people in my whole life. So it's almost like there's a 50-50 chance if you see a barb or a wizard that bot is going to be insanely overpowered for some reason. And even if you check their stats at the end, they're still going to have, you know, the same secondary and resonance as you. It's so weird. And to top things off, once I reached silver 4 or 5, I stopped getting quick matches. So the bot matches used to take about 30 seconds for me to find one. And then out of nowhere, the game just switched up on me. I started waiting 2 minutes per match, and then 3, then 4, and then 5. And by the time I'm waiting for 5 minutes, I'll click to restart the queue. And then this turned into me waiting sometimes 25 minutes for a match. I later found out that all I need to do is just let the queue run for 7 minutes, and then at exactly 7 minutes is when I would get a bot match. So that's the reason this took so long, honestly. I would only have 4 hours on stream to queue for BGs from 12 to 2, and then each match at minimum would take around 12 minutes, whereas if you're fighting real people, the match should never go above 10 minutes long, including wait times. And that's like an overtime match down to the end. So bot match after bot match after bot match, I finally made my way into gold, ready to finally fight some real people. But again, I queue up for normal BGs. My wait time is 7 minutes, just to get served up a nice hot steamy bot match yet again. So at this point, I was insanely confused, but I just thought maybe I need to get higher into gold to find people. And I started to get tired of streaming bot matches day in and day out because it's not the best content to watch. It's not the most engaging content just in general to play even. So I tried to do some PvP off stream, and this is when I did my first Convoy matches, assuming that I would still see bots. But I queue up for Convoy. Within 30 seconds, I find my match. I was fully expecting bots, but then as I load in, I see real people. So now I know I just need to do Convoy only. The games are faster, and even if I'm losing more, I will still climb so much faster than waiting 7 minutes for a bot match. So now we finally entered the final stage of the account, the real PvP content. So as I had mentioned earlier, I'm only ever able to fight real people in the Convoy, and I want to stream all of the progress on this account. So I started doing a shorter stream in the morning and then another stream for the duration of Convoy PvP in the evening instead of just a long stream starting from the AM. This proved to be the best way for me to progress through the ranks. Some days I would do some PvP in the morning with some bots, hoping that, you know, I'd find real players. It happened one time. I played one regular BG match and found real people one time throughout my whole playthrough. So I didn't really do that many bot matches once I got to gold. I tried to just keep it all to the Convoy because it's honestly just more fun. If I wanted to, I could just keep doing bot matches until the end, but I'd rather die, to be honest. I was using 2 different builds in bot matches versus PvP matches, and here they are on screen. So it's not going to be a super long, in-depth guide on these builds. I just want to show you what I've been using. The build that I was using for the bot matches, I had gotten from my Discord from a player named Tiff. He's a very knowledgeable wizard, puts a bunch of builds on the Discord, so you can check that out if you're interested. And then once I was fighting real people, I switched builds and used the most recent build at the time from Mao. And the reason I'm using these 2 different builds is because the first one requires me to be super up close and personal when I'm attacking, which works very well against the bots since they all basically have the same or worse stats than I do. But in real PvP, almost everyone's going to be at least a little bit stronger than me. So with Mao's build, I can keep a lot more distance and actually make a difference in the matches, even with my super low stats. Whereas with the other build, I'd be on top of everybody, probably get killed instantly, not be able to do much. And another thing that added to the effectiveness of my build was getting the 4 out of 4 Meteor Eternal Gear. So this gives me an insane damage boost against enemies once I hit them with Meteor once. And in practice, you will actually see this difference in the damage dealt by the first Meteor versus the second or third. And so many people would just die after a few hits of Meteor. And now, let me leave you with a quick montage of some of the Convoy matches before we wrap this all up. Game number 2. Yikes. Yeah, he better go. He better go to the other side. And that right there, JD's and Lunnelman, 35, 1 and 15. We don't want to talk about it. We want to talk about Legend. Achieved, unlocked, completed. Just like that. As you can see, I went 40 and 31 against humans, but that's a 67% overall win rate, including with the bots. So, you know, if we pull up the calc, which is short for calculator, if you didn't know, and we do 40 divided by 71, we have a 56% win rate against human beings. So, if we do a little quick maths and we solve for x in this equation, sorry, I know, a little algebra jump scare right here, my bad. But this gives us a good idea as to what my win rate would be against bots, and it comes out to be 78%. But anyways, like I said, that's the challenge completed. Thank you all for watching, and especially if you've made it this far into the video and you've watched this much of the video, you're a legend. So please let me know if you've enjoyed the video in the comments below, and then make sure to like the video and subscribe if you're new. As well, I'd like to give a big thanks to my channel members, TC Link Gaming, Pat Henry, Zuwen, Mohammed Al-Tahir, Sarah Bell, Ugly Mo, Randall De La Cruz, and Lola Nunn. Thank you all so much for y'all's support. And if you'd like to support the channel, you can support for as little as 99 cents. And I will see y'all in the next adventure, whether that be in-game or IRL. A peace.